What do we do first thing when we rise up in the morning? What do we do just before we lay down to go to sleep at night? Well, we're checking on the media. What do we do when we don't do much walking by the way these days. What do you do when you're driving down the road in your car? You're probably engaged with the media in one way or another. And all the times that Moses told the children of Israel, think about God, think about His law, teach it to your children. In all of those times, we're involved with using the media. In a 2-year study, a college professor asked 4 to 6-year-olds. Now get this. This is an old stat that I got a while back, but I was shocked by this. In a 2-year study, a college professor asked 4 to 6-year-olds, which do you like better, TV or daddy? Are you ready for that? 44% said they like TV better than they like their daddy. That's scary, and isn't that honestly scary? Doesn't that talk about the potent influence of media in our lives? And just the very amount of time that is invested, that's got to be a major concern to us. Of course, a huge area of concern is immorality. And the media is just full of all kind of immoral influences, all kind of immoral images, and so forth. The publication Psychology Today said 90% of young men in America report viewing pornography with some regularity. That's scary. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 young men report viewing pornography with some regularity. Of course, they're viewing that pornography principally on the internet because it's so widely available. In fact, internet content, a very high percentage of the totality of internet content is pornography. In a 2020 survey, it was indicated that the average first exposure to pornography by children in America is before age 13, with some reporting exposure as early as age 7. Now that's not an isolated reality. In another survey, it was estimated that among 14 to 18-year-olds in America, 85% of males and 57% of females exposed to pornography. So that's just one indication of the kind of immorality there. We could branch that out. We could do all kinds of statistical survey, but I don't think I have to tell you about that. You know that the media is a grossly immoral influence in the lives of people. And what I'm sad to say is too often we allow it to be in our lives and influences us. We pipe it into our homes. We bring it in by special cables and satellite dishes. We even carry that around in our pockets with our smartphones. We allow that sort of influence to be at a moment's notice. We can access it instantaneously. Think about the text that Joel read earlier from Matthew chapter 5. No, this is not the one. The couple of verses after this is the one that Joel read. We'll look at that later in the lesson. This is the verse just before what Joel read. In Matthew 5:28, Jesus said, "Whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart." Let me ask you a question about that teaching of Jesus there. In order to do what Jesus there warned about and condemned, to look on a woman, to lust after a woman, would you have to be in the physical presence of that woman in order to do that looking and that lusting? Well, I think all of us would say, no, you wouldn't have to literally be in the same room with such a woman. Could you do that by watching something on TV? I think you could, couldn't you? Could you do that by sort of browsing on the internet in your home with your computer? Could you lust after a woman by looking at her on a computer screen? Yeah, you could do that, couldn't you? Could you do that via a smartphone? Could you access some of that wicked internet content on your smartphone? You could do that, couldn't you? You could commit the sin that Jesus there described, and I'm going to tell you something, people are doing it. I'll tell you something really sad, Christians are doing that. That's the kind of influence that the media is having on our lives. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 33, "Be not deceived, bad company corrupts good morals." That's just a truism. It was true back in the first century when Paul wrote those words. It's still true in the 21st century. And I'll tell you, the media is bad company. And the media is corrupting the good morals of America. You can be sure of that. It's always been true, and maybe I would say it's more true now than ever before. Bad company corrupts good morals. We got to be concerned about the immorality that the media is pushing at us constantly. Let me suggest to you that we have to be concerned about the language that we hear in the media. Let me ask you a question. Would you let someone come right into your home, maybe right into your living room, you and your wife and your kids all gathered round, and would you let that person just begin to spout all kinds of curse words and vile language, saying all kinds of horrible things? Wouldn't you say, hey, buddy, hold on there just a minute. You don't talk like that in front of my family. Wouldn't you do that? We would do that, wouldn't we? But the fact of the matter is, we are inviting people into our homes on TV or via the internet or all other sorts of social media. We are inviting people to come right into our homes and use all kinds of vile language. I got to tell you a story that happened to me when I was a kid. In the neighborhood where we lived, some of us boys, we got into a rock throwing fight. And unfortunately, my accuracy came to me just at that moment. And I hit David Fulkerson right in the head with a rock. And he went home bleeding and bawling. Boy, I knew I was in trouble. I headed for the house and I hit the back door and I went right to my room. And I just kind of hunkered down because I knew trouble was coming. Well, the trouble actually was averted because when David Fulkerson got home and his dad saw what had happened, his dad didn't even walk to our house. He jumped in his car, drove down to our house, skidded into the driveway, jumped out. My mom met him on the back porch. What in the world is wrong? Well, he proceeded to cuss her out because I had bloodied his son. He gave her a good cussing. Oh, man, I knew I was in trouble when Dad got home. I knew I was going to get the whipping of a lifetime. Funny thing happened, though. When my dad got home, my mom met him on the back porch, too. And she told him what Mr. Fulkerson had done, how he had come down there and cussed her out. My dad didn't even look in my direction. He got in his car, he drove down to Mr. Fulkerson's house. And he said, don't you dare ever do that again. Don't you dare come to my house and speak to my wife in those kind of terms. Don't you use that language around my family. I guess bad language saved me that day. I never got the whipping I deserved that day. But you get the idea. You just don't want people to come into your home and use curse words and all kind of bad language. And yet we do allow it. We do allow it by way of media. The Parents Television Council has surveyed this sort of thing continuously, and they made an analysis of programs on TV rated TV PG. And they found that in a 10-year span, I think it was from 2009 to 2019, in that 10-year span, they found a 43.5% increase in the use of profanity on television. Now, if you don't think that's statistically significant, I would just ask you to do your own survey. Some night when you're going to watch some TV programming, just have a pad and a pencil there, and every time you hear a bad word, make a mark on a pad. Every time you hear God's name taken in vain, make a mark on your pad. I think you will be surprised at the end of the night how much bad language you have observed in just one simple exercise. It's happening. It is a huge problem. And of course, it tends to influence us. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 12, verse 36 and 37, I say to you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, by thy words thou shalt be condemned. We're responsible for our words. The problem, of course, in listening to all that vulgarity by way of media is that it influences us, and that begins to encroach upon our minds, and it becomes manifest in our speech. One summer when I was in college, I worked on a construction crew, And it was hard work, but it was good. It was a learning experience. But the job boss that I worked under was, without a doubt, the most proficient cusser I have ever been around in my life. He literally could not say a sentence without a curse word in it. He cussed all the time, and the worst words, the very worst words. You know what happened? By the end of that summer, those words began to pop up in my mind. And when I'd smash my thumb with a hammer, I'd be tempted to curse like he cursed when something went wrong. When we're exposed to that, it begins to infiltrate our minds, and it's going to be manifest in our speech, and we have got to be careful. Jesus said we're accountable for the speech that we use. The media is trying to influence us to speak bad language. Let me talk to you for a minute about violence. And I think this is an important area that we've got to be concerned about. The media promotes violence. There's just no doubt about that. We're living in a violent time. More and more violence is clearly obvious all the time in our culture. In the archives of general psychology, they reported on a government-funded research project, and they said, quote, "A direct relationship between watching aggression and behaving aggressively has been observed." No kidding. So I don't know how much government money they wasted doing this research, but they said if you watch a lot of violence, you're more likely to react violently under similar circumstances. Really? That's actually not too surprising. And don't you think you could probably have told them that without spending millions of government dollars to do the research? The average American youth, get this, the average American youth will witness 200,000 violent acts before age 18. Now think about that for a minute. So here's a kid growing up in America, and he is going to be personal witness to 200,000 violent acts before his 18th birthday. Of course, all of that witnessing will take place on the media. TV and other forms of media is where he's going to be exposed. How many violent acts do you think the average 18-year-old would have seen had it not been for media? If there was no media, how many violent acts do you think they may have observed? Well, probably not any, but certainly not more than just a handful, because that wouldn't be in our experience, would it? But by virtue of media, we're exposed to it all the time. I think we've got to be concerned about that. God teaches us as His people to be peaceable, peace-loving people. In Romans chapter 12, beginning verse 17, "Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord." Now that's what the Lord teaches us. And you've got to admit, media is trying to teach us to be just the opposite of that. Just exactly the opposite of what God wants us to be. The media has influenced us to go in exactly the opposite direction. We've got to be concerned about the violence that we are exposed to by virtue of the media. And then, let me add just one more category here. And I don't know how to categorize this other than to call it other harmful effects. And what I mean by this is the entertainment influence. You know, we have become addicted to being entertained on a continuous basis. We must be entertained. And it's available to us. It's all available to us at the push of a button on a remote or the swipe of a touch-sensitive screen. You can have whatever you want. What do you want? You want to see a pretty girl singing a song? It's on there. You want to see a funny man telling a joke? It's on there. You want to see monster trucks crashing junk cars? It's on there. What do you want? I mean, it's on there, and you can have it. You can have it at a moment's notice. You can have whatever you want. Now, someone says, "Well, what's so bad about that? As long as it's not immoral, bad language, or full of violence, what's wrong with it?" Well, here's my suggestion to you: because of this entertainment effect, other more important things, we already said other more important things are being neglected, but also in addition to that, important things seem less appealing to us. And I especially have in mind something like this worship service. You know, this worship service is just not too stimulating to me, you know. I'm addicted to being entertained and all those really amazing special effects, you know, that they do. And church is just not like that. And I find it kind of boring. And when the preacher is preaching, I just don't get anything out of that. It's just not what really appeals to me. And so, because of that, maybe tonight, instead of coming to worship, I'll stay home and watch my favorite show. Or maybe I'll stay home and watch the big ball game that's going on right during church time, because that's more entertaining to me. Well, our attitude ought to be, like the psalmist said in Psalm 122, verse 1, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. And that's the way we ought to be. But of course, the media influences us to think differently than that. And that should be a concern to us. You may be able to add to that list, but let me suggest to you that in all of those ways, as the people of God, we certainly need to be concerned. Those are major areas of concern for us. Now, I don't want to leave the lesson with just pinpointing the problem. I would like to spend just a minute here at the end of the lesson talking about some suggestions as to what we should do. First of all, let me suggest to you that we need to have computers and TVs in open areas of our home, never in private rooms, and especially never in a child's own room for them to make their own choices and regulate themselves in regards to what they see and what they watch, either on TV or what they're able to access on the internet. I'm not a prophet, but I can, I believe, accurately predict this. You give a kid his own TV or his own computer in his own room without supervision, and I can guarantee you he will watch something he shouldn't be watching. That's a guarantee. It's not maybe. I'm telling you, it will happen. Now, you could stop that from happening by not allowing them to have that TV or that computer in his own room. But I'm going to tell you, we all need that, right? Husbands need it. Wives need it. Put that computer out in the open. Put that TV out in the open so that whatever's on there, I can't just be sitting there watching it in solitude and thinking I'm doing it in anonymity. I need to know that there's somebody else who's going to be in that room, and they'll be, what are you looking at there, Dad? What are you looking at there, Junior? And just that in itself will be a regulating effect. So have computers and TVs in open areas. Be sure to supervise all media that is being used by your children. And in close association with that, use all parental controls that are available. I'm especially concerned when I hear about parents who just let their kids have unlimited, free, unsupervised access to the internet. We already mentioned that a high percentage of internet content is pornographic. And we already said that kids are being exposed to pornography, for instance, at very young ages. Most young men are exposed to pornography before they reach their 13th birthday. Now, if you were, as a parent, exercising control over what they're able to access in the media, you wouldn't let that happen. But if you neglect your responsibility and you're not supervising your kids when they connect with media, then that's going to happen. And so be sure, and again, this is sort of a 24/7 kind of responsibility, eyes in the back of your head kind of requirement. You have got to be on your toes. You've got young kids in your family, young, very impressionable kids in your home. Be sure to be in control of the media that they're exposed to. Because if you don't supervise that, and if you don't try to control that, it's not going to turn out well. You're going to have trouble. That's going to be a problem. And so, supervise, use parental controls. Let me I'm sort of on a soapbox here, but let me suggest that you seriously should evaluate the need for and the use of smartphones by your kids. So a lot of parents are giving their kids smartphones when they're really, really young. I got a whole, I don't know. I think we're all way too addicted to our smartphones, no matter how old we are. But I'm really concerned about parents thinking that their kids, maybe their 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids need a smartphone. Why? For what reason do they need that? All you're doing is giving them a tool that very likely can be misused. So just let me challenge you parents of kids in that age range. Evaluate their need to have one. And if they have one, seriously observe how it's being used and control it by all means. You got to be on your toes. You got to really be up and ready to act in regards to these challenges. Certainly, and I just think a logical, common sense kind of thing is to say, we're going to limit the amount of time that I personally and my family can use the media. Do you remember those numbers we cited earlier? The average American is connected with media 10 hours a day. That can't be us. That just can't be us. We cannot be that addicted to media. We've got to limit it. And tell your kids, okay, you can watch this show tonight, and then we're going to do something else. You can watch this show tonight, and then we're just going to sit down and visit as family, maybe play a game. We'll do something else. You can watch this 1 hour show tonight, and then we're turning the TV set off. Or you can get your iPad out, and you can watch 2 YouTube videos. For us guys, you can watch 2 duck hunting videos on the iPad, and then we're putting it away for the night. No more. We're not using it anymore. Okay. We can do that. We can do that. We should do that. I think that's just common sense. Purposefully limit the exposure of you and your family to media. And then here's a challenge I want to put before you. Consider turning off all media completely, at least for a time, just to test how addicted you are to it. I know whenever we talk about this sort of thing, somebody said, listen, now I know there are people who are addicted, but I'm not. I can take it or leave it. I'm not addicted to the media, buddy. You might be talking about some people, but you're not talking about me when you talk about media addiction. I am not addicted. Okay. I challenge you to put that to the test. Don't access the media for a week. Between now and this time next Sunday night, don't have your TV set on. Of course, it's pretty hard because a lot of folks use the computer in their work and so forth. But just say, I'm not going to have any recreational access to media for 1 solid week. And that means you can't watch the news, and that means you can't watch sporting events. That means you're just not going to use the media for any recreational purpose at all. Not going to listen to your streaming music for 1 week. You think you're not addicted? I'll tell you, you're addicted. And I'm going to tell you what else is going to happen. You're going to have withdrawal symptoms, just like an addict does. You're going to have withdrawal symptoms, especially the first 3 days. You're going to be craving that thing, man. You're going to be wanting to get that smartphone out and start doing what you usually do with your smartphone. You think you're not addicted, you need to do a self-test, because I think we all are addicted. And it's a scary thing because the addiction is to something that has all kinds of bad influence in our lives. We've got to get control of that. We've got to get a handle on that. Think now of the application. This is the text that Joel read for us earlier. Think of this application. If thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out, cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off, cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. You know that passage from Jesus. I think you know the meaning of it. See if this wouldn't be a fair application of what Jesus was teaching. If your television set offends thee, cast it out. That would work, wouldn't it? If your smartphone offends thee, throw it away. It would be better for thee to go through life without a smartphone than to perish and thy whole body be cast into hell. Would that fit? If your computer offends thee, throw it out. It's profitable for thee that thy computer should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. Wouldn't that be a fair application of the principle Jesus is teaching there? I'll tell you, that seems extreme, doesn't it? Well, that's outrageously extreme to suggest that I wouldn't have a computer at all, wouldn't have a TV at all, maybe wouldn't even have a smartphone at all. That just seems extreme. I don't think it's extreme relative to what Jesus was teaching in that. It'd be better. I'd be better off to not have access to any of that stuff. If it's going to keep me from going to heaven, I'd be better off to do without it all. And I think that's the level of this challenge that we're facing, the influence that media has on us. Proverbs 6, verse 27 and 8. Can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Can one go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned? Rhetorical questions, obviously. I'll tell you, plug in media there. Can one have unfettered access to the media and not get burned by it? And the answer is no. You cannot have unfettered access to me. None of us can. Our young people can't. Those of us who are old, we can't have unfettered access to the media, not controlling ourselves, our families, our children, just wide open. We cannot let that be so. We will get burned and probably already been burned. And so we got to really think seriously about the influence of media in our lives. I think it's really important. We probably should talk about it more than we do. But let's all be prayerfully considering things we are doing and things that we should be doing and implementing to help mitigate the evil influence of media in our lives. Thanks for your good attention to what we've had to say. Hope it's been helpful. I'm not saying that I've got that under control in my own life. I'm preaching to myself here as much as I am to you. This is a big issue in our lives. Thanks for listening. We're going to sing a song of invitation. As we sing this song, if you need our help in making your life right with God, we're here to help you. Let us know. If you need to obey the simple gospel plan of salvation, hear, believe, repent, confess, be baptized, we're ready to assist you with that. We're ready to study more with you. If you need our help, if you're a Christian and you need our prayers, let us know. We're ready to help. Let us know while we stand and sing this song.